Hello and welcome to the Divorced Dadvocate. I am Jude Sandoval and I am very pleased today to be joined by DSO of the Dad Starting Over podcast and website, and also the author of the Dead Bedroom Fix. DSO, thanks for being on today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, if you wouldn't mind just give us a little idea about where you're at in divorce, how many kids you have, and maybe share with us what got you into talking about dads starting over and divorce and all of this fun stuff that we go through.
Sure. Well, I've been divorced for about 8 years now, and I have 3 kids. One is almost 9 years old, almost 14, and almost 17. So I do have my hands full. And yes, I did remarry as of, I think it's been 3 years now. I started dating after divorce pretty soon after, way too soon. We can go into that. That's a whole other topic. But
Yeah.
I met my now wife about a year after the divorce of my wife number one. And so we've been together for about 7 years now. And it's been going really well. And I started about 2 years after my divorce was complete is when I started writing online in the form of a blog about my thoughts and opinions and kind of like an online diary type of thing. And I wrote on the topic of dead bedrooms, which for those that don't know means a sexless marriage, which is something that I endured during my first marriage. And that kind of sparked some interest in some people. And I got some actual emails from readers. And people could find me on Google. And then I wrote a book called The Dead Bedroom Fix, which has done very well. And I wrote a couple of other books. One's called Now What? A Guide for Men Starting Over in Life After Infidelity, Breakup, and Divorce. And then the third book was out not too long ago, and it's called Red Flags, which is just what it sounds like. It's a guide for men on what to look out for when you're looking for Mrs. Right. And I also have a little podcast, which I don't do nearly as much as I would like to, but only have so much time. I think as far as a great deal of my time is concerned, I spend a great deal of time writing, which I love to do. And I also do one-on-one sessions with readers in the form of coaching. And I have a new DSO fraternity, which is a members-only section of my website, which gives you access to all of the books, new articles, audio, and then we have live member meetings online via Zoom on a regular basis. And that's about it.
Fantastic. So it's very interesting. And one of the things that I really enjoy about doing this is talking to many different men such as yourself and myself, but we all seem to be on different ends of the spectrums some of the time because there's some that are in the beginning going through divorce, and then there's others like you who have gone through it, have met somebody else, and are now happily married and can look back kind of through that process and give some advice. And so I'm excited to talk about that because I relate to what you mentioned about starting dating right after divorce. I did it right during the divorce. It was looking back, just not the best idea, and needed to take the time to really get to know myself. I'm at that place now and I'm very excited. I'm dating, and I'm looking seriously, intentionally for somebody. I truly believe in the institution of marriage and in family, and I love being part of the family, and my kids love family, and so we look to welcome somebody together into our family at some point. So that's a pretty cool thing. And the topic today that we chatted about is why women test men, or otherwise known in some places as shit tests. And can you just describe briefly to the audience what a shit test is, or what these little tests? I dislike cussing, so I'd like to try to name it something else, but I haven't come up with something else because shit test really sounds very good.
It does. I have heard a different version called fitness test, to test your fitness as a man or as a husband.
Okay, well, let's go with fitness then. It's,
it doesn't really roll off the tongue very well, but yeah. So,
it's not as, yeah.
No, but I mean, they can come in a variety of forms. And I think if we're being honest, everyone tests everyone in some way. It really is just kind of a gauge to see how somebody responds. So you could be in some type of social interaction with somebody and you'll drop a little something on them to see, let's see where you're coming from. Let's see what you're really all about. And it just so happens, for whatever reason, women seem to be very, very attuned to this concept, and they utilize it quite a bit in their social interactions, whether it's with their men in their life, the women in their life. They're always throw out little things. And you'll even see it when women interact with each other, woman-on-woman conversations. And as a man, I remember I used to sit in an office with 4 different women. We were all in the same little area, and I got to listen to them talk all day long. And wow, they were snotty to each other. And it was always little things where I just sit back and cringe going, ooh, wow, I can't believe she just said that. And they were basically little tests, and they do the same to their man. And when it comes to the men in their lives, these little verbal things that they say or do are ways of basically saying, show me what you got. I have, in my book, I give an example of a guy who says, let's say he meets a woman for the first time and they're sitting down for a date, and she says, what do you like to do? And he describes, like, I'm really into motorcycles. I've been riding motorcycles my whole life. I got a Harley, I got a Honda, I do this, I do that. I've been racing. And she listens and smiles. She goes, And she goes, man, I just think motorcycles are stupid. My brother was in a motorcycle accident, and I've always said I'll never date a guy who's on a motorcycle. I just don't understand it. There's so many better things you can do in life. And some men are mentally in a place where they panic and like, oh no, the pretty girl is now upset. What do I do? And some guys just completely throw under the bus their passion for motorcycles. They're like, yeah, I can see why you'd say that. I mean, it is pretty dangerous. And yeah, I got a buddy who was really badly injured. I don't know, maybe one day I'll stop, but it's probably a good idea. You know, my mom says that I'm stupid for riding a motorcycle too. Maybe I should listen to her.
Right.
Well, and right away, that is a failed test, because
exactly.
she basically just threw out there, are you willing to change your opinion for little old me, the woman you just met that you're obviously trying to impress? And the guy says, yes, I am. I'm willing to change my passion and my opinions and everything just for you. And she's like, oh.
Right.
And she may not consciously know it, but all of a sudden she's a little less interested in the guy than what she was before.
Right. So I think that is a very important first idea, is that tests are happening all the time. So
Yes.
the scenario you just described, if you're talking with your buddy, you'll potentially handle that in a complete different way, because you just know that you like motorcycles, and you maybe even try to convince him, hey, let's go for a ride. You might like it, or something else. But in this situation, it might, your thought process, or depending on how you act or how you may have been wired through your dating life or your childhood or whatever it may be, could potentially have you acting in a different way than you would in potentially another social situation. So that's a phenomenal point. So to understand the frame of where you're at, the situation that you're in. And so the next thing is that I'd like to know is what are women testing for? So you briefly started to talk a little bit about the psychology there of that. Tell us a little bit more. So we're getting tested all the time in all of our lives, but we're starting to date again after divorce, and we're dating women. What are these fitness tests, and what are they testing for?
The main theme that my brain is highly attuned to, and that I see again and again in myself with my own relationships and what my readers report, is tests that revolve around the concept of, are you really a man of your word? Are you a man of integrity? And it could be extended to, let's say there's a guy that says, I'm going to lose 30 pounds. And he said, I'm going to the gym, and I'm going to the gym 5 days a week. And I'm not going to eat sweets and candies anymore. No snacks, cakes, that kind of stuff. And he announces to the wife, because she tries to make pizza or something. He goes, nope, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm going to go with chicken and salad. And she's like, oh, okay. And sure enough, here comes the test. Do you have to go to the gym today? Can't you just stay home and watch Netflix with me instead? We always stay home and watch Netflix. That's a test And the guy could fail and go, well, okay, just this one time, that's fine. And the wife may, outwardly say, "Yay," but inwardly, it's like, well, that didn't take much to knock him off his mission, did it? All it took was one little "Can you please," and he's done. And
Right.
she and some women, very bluntly, based on what some of my readers say, very bluntly tell the men later on, "Well, obviously, you didn't take it that seriously if you were stayed home and did this and this, or you did this other thing." And the guy gets flustered and says, "Well, you asked me to. Why would you ask me to do that if now you're so upset about it?"
Right.
And the wife's always invariably say, "Well, you don't have to do what I tell you to do. No one told you you have to do it. It was your choice." And she's right.
Right.
And
So they're
go ahead.
testing for your, that you have the confidence and the strength to be the person and the man that you
Mhm.
believe that you are. Would that be a
Very
good way
good.
to
Yeah,
summarize that?
excellent. And that same wife in that same scenario may bake a pan of brownies and say, "Do
Right.
you want one? It's your favorite thing, brownies." And some men get incensed to that, like, she knows I'm trying to lose weight. She
Right.
knows that brownies are my favorite thing in the world. Why the hell is she doing this?
Right.
And this knee jerk, super simple way of looking at it. I'm sure psychologically you could go and dig and dig and dig and why somebody may do that, but you can just look at it as, yeah, she's testing you. And
Exactly.
life in general throws tests at you. I mean, if you're that guy that works out and you say, "I'm going to work out 5 days a week," and you wake up in the morning and go, my knee's a little sore. I'm not feeling quite right. You could say, "I'm still going to the gym, but I'm going to not do squats because my knee hurts. I'm not going to run. I'm going to walk and sit on the treadmill. I'm going to work around the injury." Or you could say, "I think today being a rest day is a good idea." Well, you just failed a test there.
Right.
And
So would you agree that in some respects that these tests are a positive for men?
absolutely. One way to look at it as a negative is if your woman is just outwardly, for lack of a better term, bitchy, um,
Hmm.
angry, emotional, and there's just no rational reason for it whatsoever. She's just not in a mood and she lashes at you. That doesn't really fall under the umbrella of what I talked about before. We're trying to knock you off your mission, so to speak. But it
Hmm.
is a test of, um, do I, as a woman, this woman talking, do I, as a woman, have control over your emotionality as a man?
Hmm.
Will my little outburst knock you off of your very stoic, manly pedestal that you're on right now? And that's something a lot of guys have a very hard time with, and I personally have a hard time with.
Hmm.
I have very little patience, especially as I'm getting older. I'm noticing I'm having patience. I don't have patience for much irrationality or emotionality, and I have to work on that.
Yeah.
And so, a woman doing that, I always tell men my standard line is something along the lines of, "Why would you say something like that? I don't talk to you that way. I consider it very disrespectful. So I can't imagine you talking my way. So don't do that again. You understand me?" And I think a woman may be caught back like, "Whoa, all right, well, he's serious." But in the end, she will respect you.
Sure.
If you
It's creating boundaries about,
put up a boundary,
yep,
exactly.
about how you're going to speak with each other, the respect that you're going to
Yeah.
have with somebody, um, around in that particular situation.
And how not to handle a test like that, if you want to call it that, incorrectly would be maybe just to leave the home.
Hmm.
Fine, I'm out here. Bye. Not saying where you're going. Basically throwing a hissy fit, screaming and yelling right back at her.
Sure.
Why do you have to do this all the time? That's what a lot of guys say. Everything is going smooth and everything's great at home, and then boom, out of nowhere will come with. She'll bring up something from 3 weeks ago that upset her. Who knows what? And the men
Right.
just get irate at that. Why would you ruin such a great thing? We have a great thing going here. We're all out on a family barbecue or something, and you have to bring this up. Nah, nah. No, just calm down. Answer it as the calm man that you are. It may result in initially more fireworks, but in the end, she will have more respect for you. And really,
Yep.
it all comes down to that concept of respect.
Absolutely. And if you can keep that calm, stoic poise around that, typically I've found that you can dig a little deeper and find out that there's not even something
Yeah,
that is associated with what the outburst might be. It
yeah.
would potentially be something else, but that initial test is testing whether you're gonna be the man that can then dig a little bit deeper and be steadfast in trying to understand what it is and talk about it. Say, hey,
Mhm.
number one, don't talk to me like that. I don't appreciate that. But when you do, it upsets me. So tell me what it is that you're feeling about this situation, and let's talk about, a better way to communicate around that. I found if women are acting out like that, that there's seemingly potentially something that has already, you mentioned 3 weeks ago, something that has maybe not systematically, but has kind of gone awry, that needs to be righted at that time.
Yeah,
We,
something planted a seed in her that's just been spinning and it hasn't been resolved
exactly,
in a
and
way.
I haven't recognized what that is, because if I'm tuned in, typically I will be able to recognize body language, nonverbal cues,
Mhm, mhm.
different actions that are telling me that something's not quite right, and I, I can be proactive in asking about what might be going on,
Mhm.
or trying to dig a little deeper. That still doesn't always prompt something to come up, and sometimes it is just an outburst, which
Yeah,
is unfortunate. But if you can weather that storm, and David Dida talks about that. If you can weather that and then get past that and then dig into it, you're going to have a huge and great success. Would you agree?
absolutely, absolutely. And it's just, yeah, enduring that storm. That's the good way to put it. And there's an undercurrent here which a lot of men are very uncomfortable with, which is there's almost a paternal nature sometimes to your relationship to your woman, where it's fatherly figure, if you want to put it that way, almost like a boss, a leader, if you want to shy away from the dad thing. But it's
Yeah.
basically a, let's sit you down, let's say this is not a good thing you're doing right now, and let's figure out what's going on here.
Well,
Talk
let's put that in
talk.
context real quick for any women that are listening to, because
Mhm.
it's not, and I call it stewardship. So
There you go.
that's the word that I like, because it's not I'm not leading, I'm not bossing. I'm being just a good steward in general of our relationship, and trying to guide us in a good direction. And I think this is probably this is a conversation for a whole nother podcast. But it's important for men to provide that stewardship and take responsibility for doing that. And so
Mhm.
where you're
Well,
going with this is
yeah,
I think a important point to make in this, and it might be the most important point we make today, is take seriously that stewardship of your relationship and your family, because that is going to set the tone for so much more.
exactly. Very well put. But even with framing it as stewardship, a lot of men have a very difficult time with that. And we are a very egalitarian focused society.
Yeah.
And if there's anything that starts tiptoeing towards the line of, if you want to call it stewardship, leadership, some type of paternal role, something like that, a lot of men are very uncomfortable with that. And some get very irate and angry of, I shouldn't have to do these kind of things. She's an adult. She should be able to control her emotions. She should be able to communicate with me like an adult on a peer-to-peer basis. I look at her as a peer. I don't look at her as some underling. I don't look at her as somebody that I have to always be managing and tiptoeing around and all that good stuff. I shouldn't have to do that. And I always tell men, I'm sorry whoever told you that that was the case, but welcome to being in a relationship.
Yeah.
And she would probably say much the same thing. I shouldn't have to do this for him. He's a grown man, but we're both human beings, and you both have your own sets of needs, and you both have your own sets of strengths and weaknesses, and that's just reality.
Yep. Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit more how to deal with some of these fitness tests, kind of some tools. I originally, when I started to really understand this and this whole dynamic, um, at first I was really annoyed. I got really annoyed in what you just described, which is, why should I, she should just be emotionally in tune and figure this out, and why should I deal with this? But now I've gotten to the point, we were chatting just a little bit earlier, where I feel comfortable with this, and I almost welcome it, because for me it lets me know that she's still interested in me. She still wants me as a man. She still is, you know, just wants to build this and wants to make sure that I am the one for her. There's the idea of female hypergamy.
Mhm.
Women are generally looking for men that are good men and that have status and that want, in a way I should rephrase that, not have status, but are as good as them or better, for lack
Mhm.
of a better way to phrase that. So now I welcome it, and I almost try to gamify it and work through some of these ways to deal with this. So what are some different ways when some of these come up? Because in your blog post you talk about, let's first break down the difference between maybe a fitness test and then just something that's completely off the rails and not right. I mean, we talked
Mhm.
about this just a little bit, but in your blog post you talk about defining the difference between those.
Yeah, so really they all are very subjective, and they're all contextual. So what is the context of the situation? So I gave an example of you're in the garage and you and the wife are cleaning it, and she says, "Can we just throw these tools away? You never use them anyway." And the guy says, "Well, I actually can count on my hand. I just did 9 projects last week with this tool, and I did and the wife grows irate and starts calling names and everything else. That is not necessarily shit test behavior, as it is pretty awful toxic behavior when there's name calling and everything else. And
Yeah, you probably need therapy. You probably don't need know how to
that's
deal with the fitness test. You probably need
exactly.
therapy at that with a situation like that.
And you're bringing up a very good point in that when I have some private Facebook groups where we all talk, and shit test seems to be the subject du jour. It's every day, I should say, and it's a lot of what men are describing is what I get on there and say, I'm sorry, this is not what we call garden variety shit testing here. This is pretty toxic, awful behavior you're seeing here. And some of these women even go as far as to showing very obvious signs of infidelity.
Hmm.
And the men have kind of convinced themselves, like, I'm being tested. It's like, no, I think you're in a bit of denial here.
Right. It's deeper, like
Your
we
wife
said.
taking off for 4 hours at a time and not replying to your texts and ignoring the children and everything, and that's not a good thing. She's not testing you.
Right.
Um, I guess the case could be made that yes, she is testing to see, are you a man enough to divorce me, or are you man enough to put your foot down and say this behavior is no good anymore?
Right.
Um, with my personality, that is not grounds for okay. Let me figure solve this puzzle, this test here. That's grounds for me saying I don't think this relationship's going to work. That's some pretty awful toxic behavior you got there.
Right.
But it's up to each guy what where that defining line is.
Right.
I would caution men against using this concept of shit testing as a way of sweeping under the rug some pretty awful toxic behavior from a woman just because she's a woman. Um, it's almost kind of a quasi sexist thing for men to do, kind of patting women on the head, saying, "Oh, there, you emotional little thing. How silly of you." And then
Right.
carrying on. It's like, no, what she just did there, sir, was a pretty awful thing. I think you need to pay attention to that.
Yep. That goes back to our setting boundaries and being
Yeah.
true to what you feel and what you need, and then being able to communicate those effectively. That should go
Mhm.
both ways.
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely. So we get into one of them, and so let's say we identify or we see something that comes up. What are some tools for that? I know one of the ones that I like to use is humor. Like
Yes.
try to make something funny out of it, and there's several different ways, like turning it back or um, agreeing and amplifying. Talk about
hmm
some different humorous ways. 'Cause I just think humor in a relationship and having fun and trying to keep it lighter. There's going to be times where we have to get into a serious conversation, and sometimes it can lead to a serious conversation after you diffuse maybe something that's tense with humor. And I also feel like many men want to avoid this because they know that it's going to come to some sort of difficult conversation. And that's so that's when, if you keep doing that, and then it turns into something bigger. So oftentimes I feel like men just don't want to confront it, don't want to deal it, but you can diffuse it with humor, and then I have found, at least, that then you can move into maybe an easier transition into that conversation. Can you speak to that?
Yes, absolutely. I'm big on the humor thing as well. That's just my natural personality as well, almost to a fault sometimes, where sometimes my relationships, where if I would react to something with humor and try to downplay it and so forth, sometimes even my current wife, it's kind of like, no, this is a serious thing. We need to stop and talk about. Oh, okay. Sorry. I took that as just a little thing that was not really worthy of my full attention at this point in time. All right, go ahead. What is it?
Right.
So everything, like I say, it's contextual. So there's always, you have to feel out the situation. But in that example of the guy who the woman says, I hate motorcycles, I think they're stupid. The guy can jokingly go back and say, well, I think you're stupid. How about that? And just laugh it off. And they both laugh because they know he's not being serious when he says, I think you're stupid.
Right.
And, or throw something of her interest under the bus or something like that. And you back and forth. And so what are you saying with that? Is that I'm not so sensitive and so easily knocked off my game by some woman who just says something to the contrary. Most men that the motorcycle example, most men in that example would react very angrily and maybe even say, all right, nice talking to you. See you later.
Right.
To which the woman says, well, wow, that was easy. Jeez, throw a fit very much. Come on, big baby.
Right. Because they're testing your confidence and your strength.
Yeah.
So if you keep that frame of mind.
And so being humorous about it and treating it what it is, just an offhanded remark, who cares, is seen as the ultimate in confidence. And that really, it doesn't necessarily just apply to your interactions with women. That goes a long ways towards everything in life.
Sure.
People all walks of life are going to throw little things at you, and it's up to you to read the context and say, that's enough, cut it out, or maybe laugh at yourself along with them. Don't take yourself so seriously.
Yep. Or use the tool example. I would pull out I'd pull out the power drill and say something like, "What is this?" And maybe chase her, like maybe put one of the bits on there or whatever, like something, and then like chase her around the garage with it and be like, "I don't know what to do with this. I don't know what to do with this."
There you go.
It could be something as simple and as silly as that, and then you just diffuse it.
And in the moment where the wife in that example pulls out the tools and says, what is this? She was genuinely upset. She saw the tools as this complete waste of time, money. Look at this. They're just taking up all this space. This is just a perfect example of stuff that my husband doesn't complete, yada, yada, yada. And the husband could take that as ammunition and just start a big fight that will last all day long. Right. Or he can just say, well, that's silly. We both know that's not true if you just stop and sit about it for 5 seconds. So I'm just going to playfully blow this off and turn it into a joke, and maybe as a way for us to kind of bond as a couple. And she will and this is the thing that gets men, she will completely forget about all of that negative emotion, that acute negative emotion that she was experiencing just 5 seconds before. That's wiped off the table. It's gone. Yep.
Absolutely. Any other ideas? Now you did mention just like putting your foot down, and so there's times where and it's when I'm not feeling very patient. I might be a little bit tired. I might be a little bit busy. It might be a really bad time where I'm just really just firm and straightforward with that. Talk about that, and talk about the positives of that also, because that's not necessarily a negative thing.
No, not at all. If anybody is on a boundary with you, I have no problem with being the bad guy, playing the part of the a-hole. And that's something a lot of guys have a problem with. And if we're being honest, the entire theme of this concept of tests and how do I react and everything, it all has this undercurrent of, I don't want to lose this woman. And how should I respond in a way that will allow her to stick around and create the least amount of drama and make me look good and make me not help me save face and everything, so that I have the ultimate goal of keeping this woman around and keeping the relationship going on a nice, healthy level. Um, that's not necessarily a very healthy mindset to have, because when you have that undercurrent of what should I do in this situation? Should I do this or should I do that? What's the proper thing to do? A lot of men, especially early on in the game, post divorce and dating and stuff, it's kind of I always tell men this is kind of a muscle that you have to exercise.
Hmm.
It's this one of self-confidence, abundance, independence. Those are abundance and independence are two big words of mine that I use a lot in a lot of my writing.
Yeah.
And if you're truly confident, an independent man, and there's an abundance in life, even when it comes to women, as horrible as that sounds, even if you're in a committed relationship with a woman, you have to realize that she is in fact not, quote, the one. It sounds very anti-romantic. It sounds very robotic in a way, but lots of ones. There are a lot of women out there that are very good matches for you.
Absolutely.
The more you internalize that, the less you are to, old cliche, put the woman on a pedestal. The least likely you are to put up with nonsense that you shouldn't have to put. The more serious you take little slights of hers because she's so valuable that you have to hang on to her and you can't believe she would talk to you like this, and you off the, it's all of that should be addressed with the theme of, this is no big deal. I'm a man on a mission. If you want to come along for the ride, great. That's an awesome thing. I love you to pieces. But if you cross the line habitually and this turns into toxic behavior and so forth, I have no problem, pulling the ripcord on this.
Right. Dr. Robert Glover has a good description of this, and he describes it as having a relationship with a woman as the icing on your cake of your fantastic life, and it's
Yes.
not diminishing the relationship. It's not diminishing the partnership in any way. It is just enhancing your life that you've already created, that you are the steward of, with a relationship with a woman and your family all together. And I think that's just a really, really nice way. It just, makes it just nice and clean to what you were speaking about. So
And
let's,
go
okay,
ahead.
go ahead.
Oh, I was going to
Go
say,
ahead.
speaking of Dr. Glover, he's going to be on one of my DSO fraternity, the membership group I talked about. He's going to be in one of our live meetings coming up later this month.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So at the end, let us know how folks can tune into that or to join, so that because Dr. Glover's fantastic. He's done some great work, and
Oh, yeah.
his books and his philosophies and his stuff has helped me a great deal. And I
Mhm.
know he's helped a lot of men as well. So we're getting to the end here. I just wanted to go through and briefly review what we chatted about. The first thing being that these fitness or shit tests are okay, because we are being tested all the time in our lives, whether it's at work or with other men or in our relationships. So if you can keep the frame of mind that this is just another life test, but it is with your significant other or somebody that you're looking to date or somebody that's you're married to, it's okay that these are happening, and in fact they could be good for you. They can enhance your relationship and help your relationship.
Mhm. Very good.
Also, that women are testing to test your confidence, test your strength, testing that you are the man that you need to be in order to be with her. And that doesn't, so the other thing maybe we didn't really mention is that's not going to stop happening. You're married now, you said 7 years. That's not going to stop happening after you start dating for a little bit, correct?
Correct. Absolutely not.
Yep.
In fact, I would say as you become a more comfortable domestic uh, partnership together, marriage, living together, whatever it may be, the tests will probably amplify.
Yep. Awesome. Ways to deal with them. We talked just about a couple. There are a whole plethora, and you mentioned it all kind of depends on the context of what's happening and what's going on. Your blog on your website has some information about how to handle some stuff like that. Also, I'd say talk with somebody, talk with a coach, a therapist that might also help you through understanding this. You made a fantastic point of some men are calling these tests, fitness tests, and it's really something that is much deeper that they need to delve into with their partner or get therapy. So it's always good to have somebody to talk to. Maybe it's just a buddy, but if you can, therapist, life coach, somebody else to, to talk about these things.
Agreed.
And humor is a good way to work through this, as well as potentially just being very firm and setting boundaries.
Yes. And as you stay true to yourself, your mission, as you stay true to your calling, you don't lose your edge as a man. As I always tell a lot of guys when they enter into relationships, they soften a great deal. They become, yes dear, happy wife, happy life, pushover types, no
Yes.
boundaries. When you enforce those things and you stay true to yourself, the you talked about it, you almost welcome these little tests because, oh, good, it's a chance for me to prove myself. Or
Right.
let me show you how much this is really not that big of a deal. Because they're not a big deal for the most part. 90% of the time, these little tests are just that, little tests. And going back to the point of these things, these type of tests happen throughout your life. You got a boss that hires you for a job and says, I promise you, you're never going to work on weekends. And you go, okay, great. And then by week 2, he says, can you come in on Saturday?
Right.
That's a test. So what are you
Exactly.
going to do? A lot of people will say, well, I don't want to lose my job. This is a great job. It's the best job I've ever had. I'm coming in Saturday. I want to show them I'm devoted and everything else. And when you do that, the boss consciously or unconsciously says, gotcha.
Yep.
Now I know I
Exactly.
can ask you to come in every Saturday. And now I know that even if I gave you my word that you wouldn't work on weekends, that doesn't really mean anything. So you'll just do whatever I want.
That's a
Same kind
great.
of concept where it's, if you tell the boss, no, I don't know if you remember, I have it here in writing. It says no working on weekends. You do that, which is the right thing to do, even though that may result in the guy saying take a hike. But
Yes.
that's fine. That goes with the territory. Same kind of thing on a very, I would say, less severe scale with the majority of these shit tests from your wife or woman in your life. It may be, yeah, I'm going to acknowledge it, maybe tell her to cut it out, maybe be humorous about it, whatever the case may be. But that may result in drama. That may result in her running out the door and never coming back. That's
Sure.
okay. That means that was not a healthy relationship. That's
E-
fine.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
it goes back to the premise that they're testing your confidence and your strength. And
Mhm.
if you are the man that you are and that you should be, then you should, there's no problems.
I have
You're
heard from several men that were very much pushovers in the relationship for years. And they read one of my books. We get to talking, and I say, you really need to put up some boundaries and stand up for yourself. This is not good. And the second that they do, the wife says, see you later, and calls the attorney.
Yep.
And and he almost comes to me like, I took your advice and look what happened. And I say, yeah, well, look what happened is that you escaped a very toxic relationship. The second you tried to introduce some genuine, mentally healthy parameters around the relationship, she bolted.
Yep.
Um, and
But I've also heard it the other way,
yeah,
DSO, and that is where the men have improved their relationship exponentially with their
oh yeah,
significant other to where all of a sudden their spouse or girlfriend is saying, wow, it's just like a new man, and I love it.
oh
And I know
absolutely,
that's happened in my relationships as I progress and as I've dated more and more, in just knowing and understanding this, they have been much more meaningful, much deeper relationships in being able to know and just continue to keep that mindset of, hey, I'm confident, strong man.
hmm
I know who I am. I know what I believe in, and yes, I would like this person to be around and spend time, but It's going to be based upon how I feel and direction I want it to take, et cetera. And I'm going to be the steward of the relationship, and I hope that you would come along.
There you go.
So great. We could talk about this for, there's so much about this. We could talk about it forever, but please let everybody know where they can get a hold of you, your books, where they can tune into to Dr. Glover, who's going to be on your show.
Mm-hmm. The easiest way, the source of everything, is at my website at dadstartingover.com. All one word, dadstartingover.com. There you'll see links to the books, which will in turn you can download directly from my website, or you can go to one of the major retailers, Amazon, Apple Books, all the others, and get those there. Yes, there are audio book versions on Audible and so forth. The membership only part of the site that I mentioned, the DSO fraternity, is available there. You can click a link there or go to dadstartingover.com/join. And from there, that's where we will, you can sign up for the live meetings. You can download or listen to all of the books on there as well. And Dr. Glover is going to be involved in one of those live meetings. And that's coming up actually on July 25th, where he will be. So you have a few weeks now if you want to sign up. And sign up is only $9.99 a month. And a portion of that goes to the Movember Foundation, which is a charity for men. And that's about it.
That's great. I'd also ask everybody and anybody who has found some benefit to this, share it with others. Also, make comments below if you're watching on the YouTube channel or on the podcast. We'd love to hear from you and reach out to each of us directly. My website is the divorceddadvocate.com, and the web podcast on YouTube and on most of the major podcasting stations is the Divorced Dadvocate. So DSO, thanks so much. I really appreciate your time, expertise, all of your insights, some great wisdom today, and hopefully we can get together and do this again soon, delve into maybe this topic a little further, because there's so much around it that is so important.
Absolutely. Would love that. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Take care.
All righty. Bye-bye.